Hi, I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
I'm Jay Washington.
And we are here to review the pilot episode of Cloak and Dagger. And if you haven't seen this episode, you might want to come back later because there will be spoilers. But real quick, friends, if you've watched Cloak and Dagger, and if you're watching this video, why have you not watched the pilot episode? I want to let you know that Jason Inman and I wrote a comic book. It is called Jupiter Jet. You can get it online on Amazon, Comixology, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, everywhere that fine books are found on the internet. And if you want to see what a happy version of Dagger might be like, check out Jupiter Jet. It is Kim Possible meets the Rocketeer. Jay knows it's good. I know it's good.
I love it. I love it personally. So I got my copy.
You'd know it's good too. But enough of that. We're going to talk about Marvel stuff, right?
Yes, I was excited to hear when they announced this was coming out.
Were you?
And then I was kind of hesitant when they were like, it's going to be on Freeform.
I would say that I was largely hesitant having read the original 70s stuff. I was like, I don't know about
Well, I've been
this.
trusting them to revamp certain comic book characters to make them for the screen. You know, granted, we had Inhumans that everybody wishes never happened.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's like,
that which shall not be spoken
that's
of.
never again. Iron Fist, the way they did, and you were like, yeah, they built it to Defenders, but it didn't fit. And then you hear Cloak and Dagger knowing what the comic books were, but you're like, okay, they're going to try this live action. Technology has improved over the years, so let's see. But then they say Freeform, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be Dawson's Creek with superheroes. That's literally what I thought. And then I see it, I'm like, wait, this is almost reminiscent to the Netflix series. The way they shot it, the way everything goes. And I was pleasantly surprised.
I would definitely agree. And shout out to Freeform for making really great light daggers that I'm pretty sure are just a lit up piece of plastic, but they actually look great.
I mean, that was great. The visual effect for that was great. Even the effect for him teleporting with the cloak without having the cloak on. They spent time on this. This wasn't something they rushed through. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were like, all right, Herb, let's get this out. They made sure this looked good so people could be like, oh, I want to keep seeing more.
And I know that you might have seen some of the other episodes. Jay got a real fancy screening opportunities. I've only seen the pilot, but I think that you can tell just from watching these two episodes that there's a lot of thought and care that's gone into this show. And I really appreciate that it's a superhero pilot. You see their origins, you see Tyrone and what happened to his brother, and you see him being chased by an evil white police officer and chased into the water, and then you see the sort of dueling story of Tandy with her neglectful parents, and then them getting into a car accident, and then that sets the tone for how they get their powers.
Right, which is interesting because they flip the normal dichotomy on its head. The black kid normally is in trouble. The white girl is normally, she's an upstart.
Yes.
And the way they showed this, and they started out, I remember telling you, they got real.
Yes, they
real
do.
quick in this. You know, when you see his brother get shot and killed by the police. And then you're like, oh, damn, this is what happened. And then the introduction of the Roxxon Corps, which reminds you, hey, this is connected to something. We don't know exactly what just yet, because Roxxon has come up in a lot of different things. It pops up in Daredevil a lot. It popped up in Iron Man before. So it pops up. So it's like, okay, here's the connection, but we don't know where just yet.
Yeah. Did you appreciate that when we jump forward some years later, I love that ambiguous thing, that it's actually Tyrone is like, he's a perfect representation of this up and coming generation of African American youth, and it's Tandy who is squatting in a church and basically living her Catwoman fantasy. She's Selena Kyle in this. I mean, let's be honest.
For lack of better words. I mean, she's a burglar, too. I did like it. I also like the ambiguity of not saying exactly how many years. Because you have to play a guessing game.
Yeah.
And because of that, granted, if you watch further, you start getting clues into how far along it's been. But you're like, okay, where can this fall in line?
Yeah.
So that lets you know, is it going to connect? Is it not going to connect? To see Tandy being a badass, for lack of better words.
She is a badass.
The way she sets up dude in the nightclub after he takes her back home.
Yeah.
He was like, well, this is what I do. I find rich kids, I take them home, put something in their drink. And you're like, oh. And Tyrone is just so like, he doesn't want to do anything. When he has that fight on the basketball court, that's the one time of aggression you see building up to everything else. You know, he has it built inside him from watching his brother get shot. But I loved it. I loved what they did with this. I'm captivated like I was Daredevil's pilot.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison, I think. And they both have that mutant moment of high stress over the two episodes where we see their powers manifest. Like, it starts for Tyrone with the fight on the basketball court, and then it sort of escalates from there. I love the way that we see his cloak powers manifesting accidentally. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, he never knows what's gonna happen. Like he sleep and then he wakes up first time we see on the roof.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up in the back of the cop's car in different places. But
You would legitimately never sleep again, right?
Man, you thought Nightmare on Elm Street kept me up. I'd be taking caffeine to the face like Patricia Arquette. Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. See that reference? But I like it because now we don't know that with either Tyrone nor Tandy, what exactly do they have to do to trigger it? Mm-hmm. You know, we just think it's stress. But how do you control that stress? You know, how do you, for Tandy, how do you make that stress become where you make the daggers? We'll see that later on. But it's interesting the way they show it now. They didn't give it all away right then and there in the pilot.
I want to talk a little bit about Tandy's light daggers, which we see in the second episode really, really briefly. What brings that to the forefront is sexual assault.
Yes.
Which is something that I appreciate. It's a real thing that happens, but this is like the third time Marvel has rung this bell on television. Jessica Jones obviously has very heavy sexual assault overtones. In the Runaways pilot, there's 2 attempted rapes of Carolina.
It sure is. I forgot about that
So I'm
one.
like, if you're a young teenage blonde girl in Marvel, I don't know if things are going to go so well for you. So for me personally, and it might be where I'm coming from as a female, I was like, okay, do we need to return to this trope again?
I get that. I definitely agree. Like once you bring it up in those episodes, like okay, yeah, we do have this common thread. But the only thing I can say personally, I think I can say for just a guess,
absolutely,
is they're like, hey,
this is the internet. We can say whatever we want.
I mean, there's no consequences, are there? It's the guess that they're like, this could happen for real. Mm-hmm. And I guess being with what happened with Tandy, it is, you know, they were doing he's trying to do what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And I understand completely where you're coming from. Like, do we have to go to this one again? But it was like, okay, let's play a realistic element in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's what they were doing. Jessica Jones' whole story was predicated on Kilgrave being an asshole.
You were going to say Killmonger, weren't you?
I was so close. I'm so glad you noticed it. I was so close on saying it. Because you said Killmonger? No, Kilgrave. But that's what he did. You know, he manipulated his way into everybody.
Yeah.
You know, he basically will say, I didn't force myself upon you. I didn't make you do anything you didn't want to do. But like, yes, you did. You know, with Carolina, that was just bananas. Mm-hmm. You know, with her at the party getting drugged and everything. And then her powers slowly started to manifest and Chase helps her. But with this one, it was like, oh, he thought he was getting some anyway. Mm-hmm. And then him being the douchebag he is. Because even his buddies were like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Remember his buddy? He was like, y'all just go home. And his buddies was like, you sure? And then they left. Which, first of all, y'all are horrible individuals.
Yes.
You're two horrible individuals. You just go let him in the side of this alley where nobody seemed to hurt anything.
No. It's New Orleans.
It's New
I've
Orleans.
never been to New Orleans. I don't mean to
It's
slander
New Orleans. There's nobody ever on the streets at any times partying besides Bourbon Street. What am I talking about?
It is also like the quietest version of New Orleans I've ever seen portrayed. I honestly thought it was New York for a little while, but it's New Orleans. I like that we're seeing something other than New York for the Marvel Universe. Or Albuquerque, New Mexico.
or Los Angeles, you know, the basic places we see.
Yeah.
I think New Orleans gives it, because I said this before too in a review I did. The New Orleans element gives that extra boost of the magic, the mysticism. You know, granted, we see exactly how their powers are created.
Dude, that's so smart. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because we see how their powers are created from the explosion and whatnot. But if they don't remember the explosion fully, you hear New Orleans, you think voodoo, you think magic, you think all these mystical powers and stuff. And so it plays into the elements of the location.
I hope Marie Laveau's ghost shows up at some point. You're welcome for that idea, Marvel. Also, for these 2 episodes, we don't see Cloak and Dagger together very much. Tandy and Tyrone have very brief interactions.
Which is perfect for me.
Is it?
Yes.
Compared to something like Runaways, where all the characters are all up in each other's business from the get-go?
Well, because they had to set up the backstory. With
Yeah.
that one. They were always friends as kids. Mm-hmm. But with Tandy and Tyrone, they were never friends.
Yeah.
They were 2 kids who just, fate brought them together. That's what the story is. Fate brought them together. And the only time they met each other at first was when they were kids, when Tyrone saves Tandy as a kid.
I love that moment. Those 2 kids are...
so beautiful.
So
Wait,
nice.
you all need to see Ashley's face when they wake up on the beach. Just that, I watched it with Ashley once, and you have to remember that when she's like, oh, where'd they get those kid actors to play Sleep? It's so cute.
They're holding hands, yeah.
See? But that moment was cute. And then you had, again, the run-in at the party.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next, like, little run-in they had. And it was always them just trying to figure out, what is this? And then they have the articles of clothing from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good in the first 2 episodes we don't put them together just yet. Because then it's like, oh, well, they met real quick. The power's going to work. We know how this is going to go.
Yeah.
Why do we need a full season? Why do we need 10 episodes? We can do this in 5.
But you could have done that, I think, in a post, like, CW Flash era. There, you could have done a version where they came together quickly, but I don't know if it would be as It's very impactful.
Yes.
And it's, like I mentioned earlier, it's, like, very careful in this episode, their interactions. It'll be interesting to see how they develop going forward because classically Tandy and Tyrone are romantically involved.
Which, that's what they're going to build to. Mm-hmm. Because as you see, she realizes it's him, so she holds on to the hoodie again.
Do you think she's going to give him back the hoodie, though?
I wonder
Will
how
that become
the cloak.
Yeah.
I was wondering. I think it would be unique, but also I think you can't do it now with the success of hoodies with Luke Cage.
Oh,
I don't think
that's interesting.
You know, I mean, I would like it because it has that, you know, this is what brought it together. This is where he first got his abilities. But because Luke Cage, you know, he's a dude in hoodies. We see in season 2's trailers, he wearing different hoodies and stuff like that. So I don't know if you can go that route again with another black character. I would like to see what they're going to actually use to be his cloak. How they're going to do
instead of the actual cloak like it is the comics.
Yeah, I mean,
don't put him in a cloak and don't put her in that like cross cut out number. Please don't.
I thought.
And just do it for me.
please don't. I was thinking like it was a little tease when she had the white dress on. I was like, is that
it was
when
such
she
a
was
pretty dress.
right when she was at the opera? I was like the ballet, whatever it was. It was one of those two.
It was a ballet.
It was one of those two very eclectic. You need to sit down and pay attention and enjoy the moment, the ambiance. But no, when she had it on, I was like, okay, are they gonna do it here? Is this what they're teasing with that? But I think she's gonna have a pantsuit somehow. You know, something with pants.
Little jumpsuit.
A jumpsuit or something. Yeah, I don't think she's gonna have just a dress on because we don't really see superheroines in dresses without it being over sexual. I mean, they've done a great job with Supergirl. How they did make it like what you saw in the comic books back in the day. They did it where it was like, okay, she's wearing a skirt, but it's not revealing. It's like, this is what it is.
And Scarlet Witch has a coat that's evocative of the classic dress, but she has pants on underneath.
She has pants on underneath. So I think they may even go that route with a jacket and the pants and whatnot. But I agree. I don't want to see a 16-year-old, 17, 18, how old he is, black kid with a cloak. With a cloak. I understand the name of the show is Cloak and Dagger.
He's so sweet. I think I wrote down the actor's name, Aubrey Joseph. I think he's doing a really, really good job.
Him and Olivia Holt. Yeah. They do an amazing job.
And young actors and kid actors are always difficult to cast, so I want to thank the casting people for taking as much care as they did. I think Aubrey Joseph has cute hair. I'm all on board for him.
I'm going to grow my hair like you eventually. Like, I'm bald by choice, but I'm going to grow that out and just...
You going to be Cloak for Halloween?
Man, don't tempt me. Give me a black bed sheet and go to work.
Oh my God, that'd be so great. Okay, one more quick thing I want to bring up. We do establish by the end of this pilot that Tyrone is coming into conflict with Officer Connors, who is the police officer who did in his brother, and then we're told through the flashbacks wasn't a police officer, but spoiler alert, white cops are evil, and he is actually a police officer. Do we think he's the season-long villain?
I think he's the catalyst to Tyrone's abilities. More so. I don't think he's the villain, the season-long villain. I think he's the catalyst. Is that...
Because for typical television superhero storytelling, we do meet the villain in
early.
The pilot, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a MacGuffin. Sometimes you met him and you don't think. Because also, it could be the case where, remember, his uncle is the captain of the police.
Right, yeah.
Who covered everything up for him. So I don't know if it will last all the way through the season. It could with it only being 10 episodes. It could potentially be. But I think you need to have something else because it wouldn't explain Tandy.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It gives you Tyrone's side. Tandy's side isn't really involved in that. So, yeah.
Connors. Are you going to be the lizard? Kurt Connors?
That would yo, how would it be? How awkward would it be if he's on the phone? Yeah, I'm on the phone with my cousin Kurt. Yeah, he's a biochemist. You'd be like, what?
That would be such a good Easter egg. I would live for that. I also want to say a quick shout out to the production design and the lighting. I think that this is one of the more beautiful Marvel shows that we've had. And I'm surprised that, like Jay said at the top, that it's from Freeform.
Yeah, I think you take lessons in history.
Mm-hmm.
You see what's been done. How do we light a dark show like Daredevil?
Yeah.
How do we light that up? Okay, we want it to stay dark, but we want you to see it. How do we do a Jessica Jones?
Mm-hmm.
How do we do a Luke Cage? How do we do a Runaways? And so on and so forth. And you look like, okay, what has those elements that we want to utilize in Cloak and Dagger?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at that and you bring that over. Because it has those, it's light where it needs to be light.
Mm-hmm.
When they're at the wedding reception, which by the way, nobody can successfully steal all the wedding cars like that. And then just jump in the bride and groom's car.
It's fine.
I mean, I would like to see it happen personally, but those different things, the way they lit it, you see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say, "What's that? Are they doing that?" Try to rewind it and stuff like that.
And their color palette is very pure white, kind of like the Marvel Netflix shows where it's like
Yes.
red, green, yellow, or not orange. I made that up. But there's a very clear color
Purple.
palette going for purple. Yep. You're welcome, Jessica Jones fans. So I think it's really clear that you and I are definitely in for the rest of the season.
I am completely in. Completely.
And I want to know, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the 2-part Cloak and Dagger pilot?
How would I rate the 2-part Cloak and Dagger pilot? It exceeded expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It completely delivered.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like, oh, they really did this? A 5. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Because they didn't go like the easy route.
Absolutely not.
They didn't make things sound too cliche. They didn't make it like, oh, well, this is this and this is that. And, they didn't do any of that. They started building things to build you a world that has to keep you for 10 episodes. And they did that successfully in the first 2. Granted, pilot is normally 1, but it's 2. But that's what they did.
We'll give you a pass.
We'll give you a pass. But that's what they did, though, for me. I think because they did that in 2 successful episodes, it's a 5 out of 5 for me.
I would agree. I honestly only watched this because Jay said it was really good.
Told him.
I was going to sleep on Cloak and Dagger. I'm so glad that I didn't. And I really appreciate everything here is such a delicate balance, including the religious elements, because the comics do have heavy religious overtones. Light and dark are obviously a very Judeo-Christian trope. And I appreciate that we're seeing that, but we're not being hit over the head with it. Yes. And I'm so excited to see where the rest of the show goes.
Oh, yeah, because especially with her being light, like you said, squatting in a church.
Mm-hmm. Head on down to the comment section and let us know what you thought about Cloak and Dagger and whether or not you agree with me and Jay. And while you're down there, maybe hop over and check out Jay all over the internet.
I appreciate it, man. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mr. J Washington. That's MrJaywashington. I talk about all these Marvel shows as well as DC shows and movies on the Trusty Sidekick podcast. Check that out with myself and Bobby Hill everywhere you get your podcast listen on. And check out my personal YouTube channel, Jay Washington 80, Jay Washington 80.
And for more exclusive geek content, check out patreon.com/Jawiin. Come join us in the Hall of Justice and be a super friend. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.